client to pick up the phone and call CAP is really a hard experience because they've only ever known negative phone calls from creditors, phone calls from people wanting things from you.
Unmanageable debt, the stresses of hard financial situations is very isolating. It's hugely stressful.
A lot of people say that they're drowning in debt and they just don't know where to turn. They're in such a dark place, such a dark hole that all they want to do is finish things. They want to end things.
They feel like there's no end, there's no light, there's no hope.
And I've had a client, he really didn't know where to turn. And if CAP hadn't stood beside him, he may not be with us today. He did not see any point in fighting anymore. He wasn't worth it, life wasn't worth it, and we were able to say, you are.
The first phone call in the client's debt-free journey is really important because it's the first friendly voice they've heard, the first voice that's trying to help them get out of the hole of debt that they're in.
And we might be the first person that they've ever told about what they're going through, financial-wise and otherwise. We're able to pray for them, and usually by the end of that prayer, the whole, demeanour has changed.
People often say they feel lighter after the prayer and the phone call, lighter about their situation, lighter that the burden has been lifted from their shoulders. So once the phone call finishes and they've got an appointment booked, then our debt coaches will visit them in their house for 3 home visits.
You just know that they're ready for that journey. You can see that.
They start to relax a little bit as they realise that, yeah, this just could work. They're not alone anymore.
And it's just making them not feel shame, not feel judged, and just to bring all their bills, everything that they've owed, and letting them know that there's a specialised team at head office that will take all the calls or make the calls that they don't need to worry about anymore.
This is a partnership between CAP and the local church, and so I go as a representative, bringing my faith, but all of my faith community too. Then the second visit is gathering the paperwork and the information, and then the third visit is bringing their budget to them.
The clients, when they can see the amount allocated for their food budget, they're just in disbelief. These families are families that have probably lived off $20 a week for food, and for us to say that now they can have, $100, they just, you can see it's just it's joy, it brings them joy. They can't believe it.
And from then on, head office takes over the ongoing processes of getting them debt-free. But I remain there as a support person for them. So my relationship starts to evolve from that point on. It tends to be less about the finances and more about the rest of life.
We talk about a journey that might be 3 years, and throughout that time, lots of changes can happen to someone's circumstance, and it needs the church, it needs someone who's present in the community, it needs someone who is accessible face to face.
So when the clients start with the client setup team, it can be quite challenging because we're starting a budget from scratch. We need to make sure we set up a budget where they'll be able to make their repayments on their debts, but also be able to prioritise money for their food and for their well-being. And then they'll have a certain amount that they pay into their CAP account, and all the debts that are getting looked after by CAP come out of that debt repayment account. It's wonderful because they actually start to have a little bit of savings accumulating in their CAP account. So when the unexpected expense pops up and they've actually got money to be able to cover that expense, they don't need to borrow money off someone, they don't need to skip on food that week. You can see this change in the situation of the clients. After a couple of weeks, they'll be like, it's so nice that my phone stopped ringing, I don't have to worry so much about what I'm doing with my money every week. It's just you see the mood of the clients lift a little bit.
So our team gets involved and steps in between the creditors and the clients at the point after they've paid into their CAP account and the setup team has finalised the budget. We then go to creditors and let them know what the clients can actually afford to pay towards their debts. We form almost a human shield around them in a way. So a lot of people come to us and express a feeling of suffocation in large part because of the correspondence that they receive from creditors. Most of the creditors that we deal with on a day-to-day basis know who we are, they know what we're about, they trust the budgets, and they trust when we say that the client can afford to repay this much, they know that that's an accurate representation of the client's repayment affordability, so they'll accept that payment arrangement.
So when we advocate on behalf of the clients, we can actually sometimes get quite favourable deals, and occasionally they'll write off previous penalties that they've put on now that the client's wanting to get on top of their debt.
One story that I recall is a couple that came to us with about $77,000 worth of debt, which is really substantial, and their creditors actually agreed to write off about 40% of those debts across the board, and for them that meant about 8 to 10 years of not having to repay their debts because that's how high their repayment term was when they came to us.
It's definitely a celebration moment when we get to transfer a client to the client support team, because that means the client is really on board and they really want to get debt free, and they've shown that they're really committed to the process.
Once the client moves from the setup stage over to that long-term support, it could be a 1, 2, 3 year journey right up until the point that someone goes completely debt free.
The finances are just a small part of what's going on in their lives. So we get to hear about the births, deaths and marriages in our job, and we're able to just walk alongside them and commiserate with them and pray with them and celebrate with them.
So it's simply just sometimes a word of encouragement that lifts their wairua, lifts their spirit, and that can be the hope that they needed to get through just their struggles on a day-to-day basis. A concept that we use is whakamana, that we give them back the power in their hands so that they can eventually take hold of budgeting that in turn overflows into other areas in their world. When our clients come up to the debt-free finish line, the sense of joy that exudes out of that phone, the sense of achievement, the accomplishment that comes out, the best reward that we receive is that they can now do it on their own. They have the tools, they have the mana authority back in their hands for not only themselves but also for the generations to come.
In the time I've been here, CAP supporters have enabled me to walk with clients, support client families, hundreds of them. They're debt-free and set-free.
We are just guiding people to places where they can then thrive, and not only thrive but succeed and make their dreams become reality. Ultimately, they've got a God that loves them, that wants them to experience the fullness of life.
When they know that they're not alone anymore, when they know there is hope. Debt-free is one thing, to see them emotionally and spiritually set free as well, that's the icing on the cake.
Kia ora, it's Cass calling from Christians Against Poverty. We've got some really awesome news for you.